It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Another great conversation on Beneath the Helmet, Season 2. But before we get started, I'd love to welcome everyone to the new Beneath the Helmet community on Facebook, just released a couple of months ago in 2024. And it's a great kind of like-minded people, a group of individuals who listen to the show, want to be better people themselves, more resilient firefighters, more resilient first responders. So if that sounds like you, please join the community and share your knowledge with everyone. The more we can share, the better we'll be. So I encourage you to join the Facebook group and also share and like this episode. Make sure that your friends and your family all know about Beneath the Helmet and how powerful it can be to change some lives with our first responders. So today I got a chance to sit down with two individuals for a great conversation about this new innovative program being launched in British Columbia. So I get to sit down with Cara Fogwell from VK Wellness, as well as Deputy Fire Chief Rocky Swanson from Powell River Fire Rescue. So this program, called the PATH program, is an initiative for firefighter mental well-being and resiliency. So what I got really out of this conversation was the power of collaboration and how two individuals, one from a mental health profession and one from the fire service, can work together and truly develop something that's very customizable. It can fit any organization, doesn't have to cost a fortune, and it really impacts the availability to some mental health care, information, education. Very powerful conversation. So I hope you enjoy this episode and take some notes, and be sure to check out the PATH program, as well as like our Facebook group and like and share our podcasts. All right, until next time, stay well. All right, welcome back, everyone. We got two very special guests on the air today. We got Cara Fogwell from VK Wellness and Deputy Chief Swanson from Powell River Fire Rescue. So welcome to the show, you two.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic. So I'll start with Cara. Maybe just give us a little bit about your background, who you are, and kind of how you came to join us today on this podcast.
The VK Wellness Initiative is a private integrated health practice that myself and my sister-in-law started about 3 years ago. The intention wasn't necessarily to be working actually with first responders, but the intention was to try to explore how we could create more access to health and wellness services. And the focus became mental health due to the fact that I have spent some time working in that as a clinical counselor and registered social worker. And we, right off the hop, got a really interesting contract with our local government employment with the city of Powell River. And there is a fire department, wonderful fire department with the city. And we started putting it out there that we were interested in learning from the different leadership groups what they needed in their departments. And we quickly came to find out that there were some mental health needs and some interest from the fire department. And so we started doing a little bit of work with this group. And then the deputy fire chief here, Rocky, approached me about his desire to create a more systemic mental health program for his crew. And that was the start of a program that was co-developed with Rocky, as well as all of the members, called the PATH program, which is a collaboration between the VK Wellness Initiative, the City of Powell River, and specifically the fire department. And that's how I ended up in that work. And it has been one of the most rewarding, interesting, and wonderful experiences actually to work with this group. The impact is huge. And they're interested. They want to do it. A real neat group of people. So that's how I ended up here. That's how I met Rocky. And that's actually how I met you, I think.
True enough, it is.
My business partners are following your podcast. It was like, hey, this is something that, we might be interested in sharing the PATH program with his group. So
yeah, fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. So thank you. And thanks for all the the amazing work you're doing for not just Powell River, but the fire service in general and other first responders,
Mm.
because it will spread as time goes on, right? It will
Yeah,
spread.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Deputy Chief Rocky Swanson. I love the name. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be where you are today.
Well, I'm, this is really funny. I'm actually totally distracted right now by this whole Movember mustache. I'm seeing it for the first time myself, and it's just terrible. So
It is December, you know.
yeah. I guess we can shave it off now, right? So yeah. So, well, I joined the armed forces when I was a teenager, and in those roughly 25 years, I deployed overseas on multiple missions. I started off in the combat arms, on the tanks in the Strathcona Regiment,
Mm.
and then remustered years later into the fire services, and ended up serving on some ships and along, with the Air Force and the Navy. And so kind of what they call a purple trade in the end. So I served with all three elements of the regular armed forces and with the Army Reserves for a little while, actually. And in that time, I saw a number of friends of mine and myself exposed to what I would think is easily, highly stressful, traumatic situations. So in those 25 plus years, what I did notice is that we got a lot of training and courses. There's without naming any of them, because I don't think that'd be appropriate. There's a number of courses out there that were handed out, to EMS personnel and soldiers over the years, where it was sort of like, hey, you've done a course, now you're good, right? And that was just crossing the T's and dotting the I's, but it didn't actually do anything. And so what motivated me to go and speak to Kara was that I felt that I had seen 2.5 decades of courses where, like I say, it was sort of a feel good thing, but nothing was really actually changing. And so one thing we did in the armed forces, or at least that I did when I had a platoon of troops, is I would take my troops down to see the social workers a couple times a year, just to introduce them and say, hey, look, it's totally okay to come up here to the base hospital and speak to these clinicians. And you shouldn't be ashamed of coming up here. So I thought if I just literally physically brought my whole platoon a couple times a year and got that relationship started with the clinicians, that it would be a lot easier for people to just approach it as any other normal thing. I wanted in the end for our troops to feel that going and speaking to some clinician about a mental health issue was no different than speaking to a doctor about a sprained wrist or something else, right? And so that was the idea when I approached Kara, was that I wanted to find a group of clinicians and subject matter experts that could literally come into the fire station, get to know our people, get their sort of psychological baseline down, so we know what the so-called normal is with our people. And then this relationship continues. So there's constant contact with these subject matter experts and our firefighters now, so that if something does happen or go sideways, there's a already pre-established relationship there where it's a lot easier then to dive right into what needs to happen. And since we discuss this stuff constantly now, I mean, pretty much constantly, it's now become exactly what Kara and I strove to create, which was a systemic part of our training program, part of our day-to-day operations. So it's no longer like we're doing some special mental health thing. It's just part of who we are now. I think it's been about 2 years, Kara.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah.
And we're finally getting there. I think we're there.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
I think we're there. Yeah. I don't know if I rambled too much, but that's
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to talk about. So, Rocky, I'd love to hear how you introduce this to the crews, and if there was any challenges, and maybe for our listeners, how they could maybe learn from some of the obstacles and challenges of that's big change that you're bringing to the organization. Any nuggets you could share there?
Well, actually, I think that's a great question. And that is a good question. So what did we do? Well, first of all, the troops wanted something like this, right?
Cool.
And so what we had to do was part of the program, coming from my Army background, there's these guys in the Army called the Pathfinders, right? And they're and I was not one of them. Trust me. These are quite elite members of the armed forces that go out and literally set up drop zones, and they parachute in by themselves or in groups of two. They're almost like special forces. And they forge a path for the rest of the troops to follow. Right. And so taking that on, we wanted to engage our firefighters and bring in members of each crew, regardless of rank, just randomly sort of select them to come in and be part of a task force. We called them the Pathfinders. And so what their, that name may have changed now, but that was the nomenclature at the time. So the idea there was to allow them to speak their mind about the program and to offer up changes and to have real impact, so that it wasn't just from the top down. It was literally from all angles. So a couple times a year, they meet as part of this task force to help us course correct. And this is working, this isn't working for us. So it really is, the major steering of this comes from them. And that's really it. So
yeah, co-created.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Kara, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the PATH program is, and maybe just share what kind of an overview of what that PATH program is and what it consists of. Is
Yeah.
it regular training? Is it a manual? Like what's all kind of included in that PATH program?
So with the PATH program, we've got a few other ones. We're working with other local fire services as well. There's 3 different governments here in this area. But what's unique about it is, and this is with all VK wellness work, actually, whether it's with individuals or if it's with a corporate group or with a community group of some kind, is that we want to offer supports and services and programming and a system, whatever it looks like, that actually meets the needs of that individual group. So that individual fire station, right? Depending on that fire department with what their needs are. And so the one thing I think really that was big for that Rocky just touched on is this kind of buy-in. And this isn't necessarily just with fire service personnel, although maybe more so because there's a bit of that civilian and member differences, same when working with police force or something like that. But it was to really find out what the needs are. And something that we did to try to address that was to come and speak to, I did a little miniature training at first with the group, which it was really funny when I did it. They were all like, oh, well, this is nice to meet you. But like, anyways, we need all of this. And so I was like, well, I'm going to take notes, which is what I do, and we'll see what we can do about it. So we went and met them doing this little training. And then the PATH program idea came up. And again, we had one of our social work students go with one of our clinicians and speak to each group. What do you think about all of this? What do you actually need? So that's how their specific PATH program got created. And it is pretty in depth. But the PATH program is actually based on several principles. So Rocky had this idea of pathfinders, and I love stuff like this, right? Dreaming up this actual system. I love creating systems. I think this is one of my artistic passions. I don't know if it's actually defined as an artistic passion, but I know that it is for me anyways.
Yep.
So he had this idea about the pathfinders. I said, well, what about a PATH program? So we thought, well, what could this acronym stand for? Let's get a vision kind of based on that. And it was myself, Rocky, and a mental health occupational therapist we had employed at the time, and then also the social work student. And so the PATH program itself, so PATH stands for, the P is prevention, the A is awareness, the T is treatment, and the H is for stronghold. And so the stronghold stands for the members, right? Being a strong and supportive group for each other. So that's a big component. And so then we created a policy manual for this program anyways, with 4 distinct levels that covered different components. So things that happen every day, things that happen that are in support of the members themselves, things that are happening at the fire hall, and then the larger management, right? Things that only happen once in a while, and training type stuff. And so there is a policy manual, and that's something that I do, or that VK Wellness does for these programs, is create the policy manual that oversees this, and then does some education in teaching everyone kind of what different pieces of the policy, what they stand for, and how you play your part in that. And it's these pathfinders who have now moved from pathfinders to path champions to path representatives. That's what they wanted to be called. They really do take a lot of this stuff and apply it with their specific shifts. And we even have those that are auxiliaries, so that are more on call, that participate too. So cool to see at the last task force meeting, actually, these path representatives knowing, like, they really know what they're doing. They're running the meeting, and like, they're like telling me like, no, this is not how we do this. Right. And And I've hung around in this more overseeing role of this program as it is these skills or these roles are transferred, but it's really, I am seeing a point where I can kind of move back. So that the PATH program tries to encompass all of those different pieces, right? And it is meant to be owned by the actual fire department members. It's really meant to be that way. And I mean, this idea of having those individuals who are interested and skilled specifically in the occupational or operational stress prevention, injury prevention, that group that are these representatives, they're the ones who are, they're really carrying this, and they're incredible. Like they're amazing. The whole group has like really taken this on in such an incredible way. Like the engagement is amazing. But I see that in all programs that are individually tailored to meet people's needs and like care about what their feedback is, right? And actually make the changes. And that's what this group has gotten to do.
Beautiful.
I hope that answered your question. I can go into much more detail about the different components of the program that meet those kind of what that acronym stands for, but maybe we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to hear kind of what's included. Like what does a
Sure.
firefighter maybe that's within the department for less than 5 years, what does this firefighter gain from the PATH program?
Sure.
Education, tools, what's that look like?
Okay. So there are a few, so there's there are a few core components. The goal is to increase, and I don't know if we coined this term or if it's out there, I didn't find it somewhere, but we're trying to prevent operational stress injury, and we're trying to increase occupational stress resiliency. And we use that word because we're transferring this kind of to other workplaces too. But with this group, how do we do that, right? And so one of the things that came up first was that this group needs access to holistic integrated, services, not just mental health services, perhaps, but they need access to even like support for the ways in which cumulative trauma can impact the body, the spirit, that kind of stuff. And I know that's not completely that is happening in the fire service because we've all done the training through the first responder. That anyone who's serving this group with our organization has done that training on firefighter culture. And I know that there is this idea that it impacts the whole person. So that's the one thing that Rocky was hoping to have the employer cover, which has happened up to this point. We've primarily seen people, and the access has been incredible, and not just for the members, but for their family members. So their partners and their children, right? And not just counseling, but perhaps support for parenting or family services or kids. We have a lot of services for children as well. A lot of us have a child development background. Access to things like massage, yoga, sleep support. We have a sleep consultant that works for us, right? So there was that, and they have access to that if they need it at this time. So the other thing was how do we kind of get them into those programs, and how do they even know what they should be using? And so we thought, well, why not these regular check-ins like Rocky had stated he experienced when he was in the military? Why not have them meet with a clinician who is trained and who's maybe social workers too, right? Who can do that resource referral kind of stuff. Meet with them, have them do some sort of screening or check-in around their occupational stress resiliency, right? And have them screening for and checking with themselves around those risk factors related to this work. So that was the idea. And then to plan for how am I going to over the next period of time. So they do these, we call them occupational stress resiliency check-ins with a clinician in our program. They do them every 6 months. And so prior to coming in, they do a self-screening tool. So they don't do this with the clinician. And this is meant to develop self-awareness. If you're aware of what you're experiencing and you catch it or you know what to do, it becomes second nature. Right? Oh, okay. That, like this reaction I'm having to that call that I went in is not, dissipating over the next few days or week. Like I need to call someone. I know what to do, or I need to take a day off work and go sit by the beach or spend time with my family, right? People begin to recognize when they need to do some stuff to prevent themselves from acquiring an injury of some kind, right? So they do a pre-screening before they come in that just covers real simple risk factors, related to substance use, depression, PTSD, and then some resiliency measures as well. How quick are you bouncing back? What's your sleep like? Are you experiencing any more consistent pain? That kind of stuff. Anything else you want to talk about? Then that form is shared with the clinician, but they don't necessarily pick it apart. They sit down. Okay, what came up for you when you did that? What's going on with you? How was work? How blah, blah, blah. do this check-in with a clinical professional that is aware of what resources are out there and what needs might be coming up. So collaboratively working together to plan for resiliency. And then taking the steps to book in with any services with us that might be helpful. Maybe you need to go talk to your doctor. Maybe your partner needs to get a referral here. These are the public services. Just have a chat. Plan for resiliency over the next 6 months. And then in 6 months, you check in again and you come back and you see. So you're doing regular check-ins. And the idea is you build a relationship with this person too. So that in between those 6 months, this is your clinical case manager. You can give them a call if you need to. You can send them an email, right? You can reach out. Okay, this is going on. I think I need some support. So the support is always there. So that is a real core preventative feature of the program. And I don't think it's something, there's a lot of fantastic training and support out there I see in British Columbia for firefighters and first responders. I've seen some incredible stuff. I haven't seen anything quite like this, where it's more kind of in person, regular. It's a little bit different than the training opportunities and peer support that are out there. It's different in that way. So I think it fills a bit of a gap. And the engagement in this has been incredible with this group, like almost 100% of the career group. Yeah. And so the auxiliary group does not do that, but they have access to the services at this time. We called them specialized EFAP services, employment and family assistance program services. So they had access to that and are engaged in that as well. So that's a core feature. Another thing that happens is there are some assessments or surveys that happen a couple times a year that inform this task force about new and changing needs of the group. So there is one that the entire fire crew participates in. These are anonymous and they come to us. We make not like a detailed report, but send them the results that asks 10 questions basically about kind of the experience at work, right? And how things are going for you at work with the workplace, and more specific to the fire department. That happens once a year before a task force meeting. Sorry, there are 2 task force meetings that happen. These are like a committee that oversees the program. So the purpose of it is twofold: to monitor the processes that are happening. Are they effective? Are they happening? Is this actually working? And then to plan for training, but also to plan for any new or different pieces of the program, right? Like if things changes, if the funding sources change for funding it, right? If there's a huge changeover, like there was recently with this group with a chief moving out and a chief retiring, new one coming in, trying to address all of those pieces, right? So this stays current. So those task force meetings, that happens 2 times a year for the task force meetings as well. The auxiliary group fills out this check-in about their occupational stress resiliency, similar to what the career staff fill in every time that they go in and meet with their clinical case manager. So we try to keep on top of auxiliary needs as well. And so they do this survey, and then we get a little bit of a snapshot of what this group is going through. And it can write things too, like, if they have questions or things like that. So that's a core piece there. Another thing that is in this policy and procedure manual is about the training piece, right? So access to training. So actually on purpose, we're planning for what are the training needs related to the mental and behavioral health of this group. And so those needs are discussed at the task force, and Rocky, who would be overseeing the training budget and training needs, we're going to talk about it there. May or may not be with us, might be with somebody else who might be able to do it better. But how do we squeeze these needs as well, right, into the training budget for the year? And then for the stronghold component, there's also policy in there related to ensuring that this group has opportunities to connect socially outside of work. And so the path representatives at the task force meetings are supposed to be the ones who don't necessarily plan these get-togethers, which do happen naturally in a lot of ways, but we talk about it there. And then if the reps or if even the deputy want to plan for something coming up, the idea is to get this group together right outside of work to be doing more social activities, because that will help with a stronghold.
Wow. Very impressive.
Okay.
Very impressive.
I hope I covered everything.
Yeah, that was great. I'm very, very impressed because, like you said, BC is, I feel, is in the kind of the forefront of behavioral health for firefighters, especially. There's a lot of amazing work getting done, but this does seem very tailored and very custom and very close-knit personal interactions that you're having. So that's a little bit different than I've heard for sure.
I can give you another example. So we are doing a path program differently with the Cathett Regional District here. So they have a volunteer fire service. And there are features that are similar to this program because they're really interesting ideas, but having people participate in these occupational stress injury, occupational stress resiliency check-ins
Mm.
with volunteer firefighters is a little bit different. Like, you're going to go take up your extra time to do this. So what they're doing actually is something a little bit different. When a new member joins, they actually have to meet with the clinical case manager as part of their onboarding.
Wow.
To do a little bit of education on this, right? And to plan at that time for their occupational stress resiliency. So it's actually built right into the orientation. And then if they meet the clinical case manager, then you could book that year, 6 months or year check-in, right? And they meet you, they get to know you, and it's almost part of the program. So they're hoping to have something more regular too. But with their program, that's something that
Wow.
they're offering, right? So a little bit different service, different needs. And they did a larger scale assessment for their group to see what their group's actual occupational needs were. So that was really neat. That's something that the city of Powell River actually did on a larger scale with all their departments, but this group did it just with their fire service. So that's what it is, right? Find out what the needs actually are and then plan with the group how you will meet those needs, and keeping that idea of prevention and awareness, right? And working together as a team, and available treatment that's accessible. So
I'm so glad you mentioned the involvement of the volunteers, the paid on calls, because I think there's hundreds and hundreds of volunteers in BC, thousands across BC, that don't get the same kind of mental health services and support that the career professionals do, right? So it's that's a good one. I'm glad that you're recognizing that group and providing them resources as well. So
And it's not wasn't in, and I would like to say I recognize them, but it's not me, right? I mean, we have this neat knowledge.
the
and
program,
experience. The program, but their health and safety officer there, Melanie, she heard about this and she was like, wow, how, and their fire service has they've really done a neat job of trying to meet the mental health needs of this group. I was quite, surprised. I was thinking, so what are we going to do if you have, but there is always things that are missing. And it's the in-person thing. That's 100% what they were missing, was connect to a local group. And I do think this is transferable to other communities too, because we can find the clinical counselors and the social workers and train them in other communities, right, to do this kind of work. So kind of like a resource that's out there, these private clinicians that are working that could do this work. And it's really neat.
Beautiful. Chief, you had a comment there?
Well, a couple things. So about 30 years ago, when we were, maybe it's a bit more, roughly, when we were in Bosnia with the armed forces, we had this issue where, at that time, things like critical incident stress debriefs, that was the going popular thing, right? It was going to solve all the problems. But what happened was, those of us that were in the regular armed forces, we would come home and we still had our regimental family to be with that understood they were there with us, right? But the reservists, which were, I think, about 40% of our deployed forces, when they got home, they were just scattered to the four corners of the earth. And so I remember reading reports about this, and of course, just talking to friends in the military, how when they got back to their reserve units, it was, people didn't even know that they were away. So they didn't get any help, and that caused major problems. And so one of the issues, in fact, we just had a training session on this very issue this past Tuesday night with the paid on call members, is that when we come back from a potentially traumatic incident or anything extraordinarily stressful, I want my career staff to really embrace those paid on call members and bring them into the fold a little extra at that time. And any kind of debrief or conversation that takes place on that particular, about that particular incident, period, everyone who is directly involved needs to be there, right? So that, the whole concept is that there's a shared sense of, a consensus reality of what happened, right? That prevents the rumors and the myth making that often accompanies traumatic incidents. And it helps people deal with this a lot better because, of course, they're dealing with an agreed upon, version of events, right? So that's the start, was to really embrace those paid on call members and make sure that they're brought in and held as close as any one of our career staff. There should be zero delineation, right? They're identical at that point, right?
100%. Yep.
The operational stress itself doesn't care whether you are part-time or full-time, right? It attacks you all the same. So that was a major lesson learned. And I think we're getting hold of that now. It has been, there's a whole lot of cultural issues to cross when you're doing that. Weird little cultural stuff, that happens in the fire service as well. So I think we've broken those barriers down, and I think it's starting to become a much more unified program that way as well.
Fantastic.
Can I say something, Rocky? That was a big piece when we did our initial planning that Rocky talked about but how do we address the needs of this group? And it's a recruitment thing too, right? And like people being able to do it and to work it and to stay working it, right? So that was a big component. And you also reminded me there is a policy that this group has been trying to work out for a little bit and came up at task force meeting again. They do have a policy around CISM and practicing this. And they came up as a group with a process that was very specifically and tying in all the things that they learned about checking in with themselves individually after a critical incident about what's going on for me, how am I doing? And then as a group, sitting down as you're doing this debrief and actually doing some planning as a group. What are the needs here? And that would include the auxiliary firefighters. And this is a piece that has taken a little bit to jump off. I think that's because the critical incident thing seems, even with the fire departments that we're working with, like trying to find the way to do this that works really well is a little tricky, maybe, right? And obviously hard work. So this is something this group is working on. It also is in their policy manual. And that's something that's come up with all the fire departments that we've worked with, actually coming up with a very appropriate individualized process for the critical incident stress management debriefing. And not even debriefing, but like the planning, right? What do we do? How do we address what's happened here? And how do we take care of our mental health, right? To prevent stuff. So that's something that's come up too.
Fantastic. Talking about the volunteers and the paid on calls, it's great for recruitment and retention. Like you mentioned, it brings people in because they know they're going to be supported and taken care of, but also they're like, hey, I'm going to be able to stay here healthy because I have the tools and resources at my disposal to have a 10-year volunteer career, right?
There was something, when we were planning this together, we wanted to know if a critical incident occurred, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead. If I am, let me know.
No, go for it.
What is it that we need to do immediately? And again, it reminded me of something in the Army when we had these immediate action drills. When you're firing your weapon, if it stops firing, what do you do? It needs to be like your lizard brain, right? So we would practice these drills 1,000 times, 10,000 times, whatever, exactly what to do the moment your weapon stops firing. And so I wanted an immediate action drill for our firefighters. So when something, some critical incident occurred, what was the first steps that we could take care of immediately without really having to think? And that's something that Kara also helped us develop, were these immediate action drills. So when something happens on the street, we pull that crew back immediately. We parachute in another crew, as fast as we can, so that we can take care of those people that were in that incident right away. And this isn't about patting people on the bum or handing out hugs. It's really about dealing with the mechanics of the psychology of this, right? And that's beyond me, but that's why we have these experts, right?
Well done.
Yeah. And that's a component for the program that, like I said, has been a little more challenging. But when we do task force meeting, this comes up. How are we doing this? How are we managing it? And now that has identified a training need for this year. And just not a big, huge training, but like, let's actually like elevate this and practice this. Okay. Let's really make this something that we're actually doing and making sure it works for us. Cause it's been something that's been a little more along the side, because there's not, how many of these major critical incidents do you have? Maybe not so many that you would consider that, right? But now, because of this task force and the managing of this meeting and the group being participants in it, this comes up because like, what are we doing here? So now that's going to be something that we're going to focus on in the winter, making sure that, people understand and the different shift captains know, okay, this is how we do this. This is how I keep my crew on top of this, right? And work with them to plan how to and I'm excited about that because it's something a little newer for me. I understand the CISM process and the changes related to it, but I think it's really neat to see. I think I read somewhere along the line when I was first doing this work, and I always thought it was kind of strange that when there's a large critical incident with a group of first responders, that they bring in a outside psychologist from somewhere who comes and sits down and does this, which seems like that would be like, oh, now we're going to go through this with somebody we don't even know. Right. And I see in the literature, it says maybe that's not the most appropriate. Maybe it's a peer support, right? And get some support after if you need it. But what's beautiful about this PATH program is now that these groups and these individual members know the clinicians, right? We can, if they need us, come in there, right? We are a part of this planning process, and it's much different than just contracting a psychologist that's changed in this. Not to put down a psychologist that do this type of work, but I think it's a bit of a neat piece that we're bringing now to this, where that collaboration that we've had is leading to this, stellar preventative practice. I'm hoping, anyways, as we move forward with planning for these drills, right, and practicing them so that this group can stay safe and protect each other.
We sort of worked the language around this very similar to how a hazmat call works, or how hazmat training works in the fire service. So there's the awareness level, the operations level, the technician or technical level, right? And we use that language specifically so that it seamlessly fit into the fire service world, right? Firefighters like that language. It makes sense. But also what Kara was just talking about, we are going to practice a number of times per year going through these drills, exactly how do we deal with a major incident, and also recognizing that not all critical incidents are major things to the whole department. Could involve one firefighter, could involve two, and that certainly is probably the major. That's probably the major truth of operational stress injuries. It generally will affect small numbers, not large numbers, and I think everybody agrees on that. And so, how do we deal with that as well? And that's all part of the immediate action drills. So,
I love.
Great part about this is that the idea of creating these pathfinders or the task force is that it course corrects, like I said, from the troops themselves, so that as things aren't working, they give us that feedback fast. And unlike a committee, I hate committees. I find them to be
not a committee,
a waste of oxygen. So we wanted something with teeth and allowing us to course correct and improve this each and every week. And I think that as this becomes more part of the fabric of who we are, that'll become more and more true as time goes on. There was a program years ago that I will name. It was called the SHARP program, Sexual Harassment and Racism Prevention Program. It was something that we did 30 years ago in the armed forces. And we did it for about 2 decades. And the idea was that they were trying to change the culture at the time, because systemically throughout Canada, of course, there was all kinds of racist, type things that were just part of the fabric of who we were. It was racism at a level that we didn't even recognize, I think, culturally. And the sexual harassment and just kind of language we used in the workforce needed to change. The armed forces had a spotlight on it because it's a public entity, and it was sort of painted with this brush like it was the big baddie in the country. But the reality was the armed forces was simply a reflection of Canada and had no more issues, and still doesn't, than any other segment of Canadian society. And that is a fact I'll argue to my death. But what the armed forces did is it put a spotlight and wanted to fix these things. And so it ran this program for about 2 decades until it naturally petered out. So it became those problems sort of were taken care of. Not to say that racism is gone, but the level that existed at that time it became completely unacceptable. And that part of our culture did change. So with operational stress injuries, that's my goal personally, is to make sure that culturally, we always talk about the stigma needs to go. When you get rid of one stigma, there seems to be another stigma. And so we wanted to just eradicate that by making this a daily part of who we are, part of our training. 15 to 20% of our time as fire service is spent training. So let's make this part of our normal training routine and our normal daily operational routine, so that that old thing of you fight the way you train and train the way you fight, making this part of that true fabric, I think I feel like I'm preaching now, but it's really working.
No, I'm smiling because I love what I'm hearing, because I truly think this, I've spoken to a lot of people that are ambassadors for mental health and well-being for firefighters, psychologists, doctors. This sounds pretty new. This sounds pretty fresh. This sounds pretty innovative. I'm really liking what I'm hearing right now. Beautiful.
I remember another part of the manual I left out, but I was so thrilled at the last task force meeting to hear more about. We had originally hoped, and the group had originally hoped, that there would be a more regular at the station opportunity to check in around your mental health. And so we had thought, well, when the career staff, when the career firefighters come on for their 4-day shift or whatever, they're doing an individual check-in using the mental health continuum, where they look at it and they're thinking, where am I at? Write a little note to themselves, right? Make it part of the practice. When they leave, they check out. So this wasn't something that appeared to me that people were using so much. Maybe it's too much, maybe the way that it's done, whatever. It wasn't something that seemed to be going as part of the policy, how we had written it up. So when we were reviewing it, I was thrilled and surprised, which I shouldn't have been surprised, knowing how diligent firefighters actually are. I've really gotten to know this group of people, really appreciate it. That each of the shifts sound like they actually are doing this to some degree. Some of them using the forms, literally checking in with each other to start and the end. Some of them just having that discussion, hanging up that mental health continuum. Like they're doing this every time they come in for shift. And when auxiliary come in, they're doing it too. Like that is, and it's that piece where it's like becoming, this is something that we have to be regularly thinking about and talking about. Like this is part of the fabric of what we do. Like I thought we were going to have to rewrite that whole policy. How do we do this? How do we bring that awareness to the daily? No, they were actually doing that.
Good.
I was like, wow, this group, it's neat.
Yeah. I talk about that in my book, Burnt Around the Edges, where I thought we really need to have a pre-trip and a post-trip of ourselves every day.
That's right.
Just like we have on the fire apparatus.
Exactly. Yep.
We go in there, we check all our equipment, we check our trucks. Why are we not checking ourselves? And then before we go home, why are we not checking ourselves before we walk out the door? Right. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly the idea was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about putting it in those terms, but that's exactly it. Was like, yeah, like a driver's inspection, a pre-trip.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect.
One of the ways that that regional district is using this program for that, like very similar thinking with their groups, is that when they when they do their orientation and when they come on calls, that they actually practice somehow. I don't know if it'll be at a form or if it'll be a sign when they walk out the door, but when they do their orientation, actually talking about how many calls might be too many for me. What are the signs that I might be volunteering and going on too many calls? Because when they did their assessment, I mean, not a surprise, but when, the more calls you go on, the more at risk you are potentially experiencing some of these ill mental health kind of stuff, right? So actually checking in when you do your orientation and then thinking about and understanding when is too much, right? And like knowing that there is a line, right? Especially when you're juggling these different things, right? And you don't have to go on every call or every type of call, right? So that you can maintain longer. So same idea. Is this checking in with yourself at regular intervals to recognize where you're at, which is a real key in any mental health therapy, service support, any clinical intervention, really. If you build awareness, I'm a mindfulness-based cognitive therapist as well. So that's basically it's a treatment program for people with different mental health conditions, including major depressive disorder, where you learn to, through practicing mindfulness, become aware of what's going on for you. And you practice it for 8 weeks. And if you get up, by the end of 8 weeks, if you participated in meditating every day, checking in with yourself, it's happening in your brain now, right? Same idea. If we're practicing this regularly all the time, it's going to become we're going to make those connections and we're going to be doing it. We're not even going to have to think about how's my body coping with this. I'm going to know. And that means I know tonight when I go home after work, I'm going to cancel whatever my plans were. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to have some quiet, whatever it is that helps you feel better. And you just do it automatically. You learn to take care of yourself.
One of the areas I find still fascinating. I mean, it's all fascinating, but the idea there's a side to this where people feel a sense of guilt, like survivor's guilt in a sense, when they come back from, let's say, a traumatic incident or an incident that others found traumatic, and they don't feel traumatized by it. And one of the things that I'm trying to get across to our firefighters is that it's okay to be okay, right? And that's a phrase that someone else came up with, but that from the military. But that's something that I'm trying to feature out here too, is that it is totally okay to be okay. You don't have to be traumatized by things, but we just want to make sure that you're correct about that. And then it's not some sort of denial, right? So
Yep.
it's okay to do that driver's inspection and find no faults.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. We often talk about it's okay not to be okay.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
okay to be okay. I love
Right.
that. Yeah. That's good. So, Chief, I'd love to hear. I'm sure everyone who's listening is like, how do we afford this?
Good.
So, as a you don't have to go into digits of how much this is costing you per se,
Yeah.
but how does one get to afford? Like, what was your proposals? Anything that you want to share there on
Well,
how you got the funding?
Yeah. So first of all, the great news is this is not expensive. It is
Right.
nowhere near as expensive as people imagine, as I imagine. I thought this was going to cost us, 6 figures or something like that. Like I really did.
Mhm.
And I don't mind getting into those details at all. But first of all, the funding came through our HR manager or HR director at the time. I didn't,
Kudos to them.
yeah, I didn't expect anyone to even get us funding, and he simply funded it through the HR budget. But again, this wasn't a massive cost. Setting it up can be probably the biggest costs, but I think we spent in the first year, I think it was for the Kara, I'm not even sure I want to say that because I don't want to get that wrong, but it was not a lot of money.
Right.
No, I think that like when you look at it, the bare bones, and this is a
Yeah.
smaller fire department too, but the bare bones of meeting with a clinician twice a year for for an hour, that's not that expensive for a group of it's about 18 or 17 or something with your group. The more people you get, but like it's not going to cost you, $100,000.
Mhm.
It doesn't. Like it was like the original quote was under 10 for
Yeah.
the systemic component and those OSR check-ins.
Right.
Because it's not a lot of time. If you're sponsoring for an EFAP program, right, where they have regular access to, which is what's been going on to unlimited like counseling supports or mental
Yeah.
health supports, that's going to cost more. But that investment, like there's like research is like, it's all out there, right? Your return on investment for doing
Oh, yeah.
that is like, there is one. You save money. If you
100%.
invest in EFAP programs that are actually helpful and work for your group and are accessible, it's going to, right? And that's what we're seeing with this group.
I think the first bill I signed was actually about $8,000.
Yeah, it was 8,000.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more with price changes now, but there's also like just the program changes a bit, right? And that's not including training. So extra training, right? That goes over into a training budget, but just
Right.
that bare bones. The initial assessment might cost more money, but the city of Pal River had already done that with the whole employment group. But that runs like those are usually under 5,000 with us, but that's a big project that we take
Right.
on and we engage. We don't just send out the survey and take
Mhm.
we get 20% return. No, we actually go meet everybody. We offer multiple points of engagement to get a real good picture. And then we write up a huge analysis about what the needs actually are and compare different, the group that's got dependents at home, the groups that the career, the auxiliary, or the volunteer firefighters that are working X number of hours, the difference between the officers or the leadership group, right? We
You
bring
said
that back
something.
in. Yeah.
You said something that's really important. We also extended a portion of these benefits to the dependents of our
Yeah,
firefighters.
the families. Yeah.
And so that's really key is
Mhm.
again, when I was in the forces, when we were doing something called a departure assistance group, a DAG, to get ready to go on a mission. One of those parts of the DAG, getting your dental and medicals done and all that stuff, making sure you were ready to go. Bringing your spouse in, or your significant other, and having them interviewed as well to make sure that they were prepared for your being away and your coming home, right? And what that meant. And I remember I was a young guy and I was married at the time, and I remember that being a very significant and an important event for my now ex-wife. But the point is that it was important and it did matter, and so we did bring those things in. I realize that's a segue to your question of the budget, but yeah, the budget overall for this was quite small. And
Good.
again, if I could have this done exactly as I envisioned, we would have a psychologist, a social worker of some kind embedded, permanently stationed in the department, right? We used to in the military, and they still do, have padres at each regiment, right?
Mhm.
And that was the person you'd go cry to if you had a problem. Go talk to the padre, right? Well, the reality is, I think with the new mandates coming from WorkSafe BC and from, not just the provincial, but the feds as well, when it comes to mental health in the workplace, we may end up seeing something like that in the future, at least a regional designated social worker, some kind of subject matter expert, someone like Kara or someone that works for her to come in and literally work out of the station. That would be ideal. I realize the cost of that is probably prohibitive or something, but I see departments now, bigger departments down in the Lower Mainland, that have deputy chiefs of diversity. If you can have a deputy chief of diversity, then I think maybe you could have a deputy chief of, operational stress, injury prevention or something, right? Whenever it is.
Yeah.
I think that the cost of this in the grand scheme, hell, even in the small scheme of things, is pennies, compared to the other cost of doing nothing or continually handing out pointless courses. If we do it this way, we're preventing likely more pensions for post-traumatic stress disorder and sick days, et cetera. Our sick days have gone down since we started this program.
Okay.
And our department has gone through some significantly stressful times in the last 2 years that we, haven't really spoken about here, but there have been some major challenges and at multiple levels. And this program is one of the key factors of our, I would say, surviving those challenges in the past 2 years. No doubt.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. I didn't really envision it to be costing too much, except for the fact of when you talked about the sleeping, all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
Is that on retainer, or is that extra? Just for my own knowledge.
The original contract was extra, and that was with the with a past HR that was there. And at the time, that was something that could happen. Things change, right? Funding changes. Are we in a recession, right? Money's not great right now, and there are changes that are probably going to happen to this program. But where we saw, the access though for that was counseling and massage, right? And counseling double everything. The other things were a little bit accessed here and there when it came up in their plan that they did, right, when they met, which was an appropriate support. But what you really saw was the mental health stuff. That's what you saw.
And I think I heard you say it was, I thought I heard you say it was unlimited as well.
It was unlimited. Yes. Yeah.
Nice,
it was unlimited. Which was something that was recognized as necessary for this particular group, and should be with the research we have. I think I started hearing about it 10 years ago, maybe initially, first responder, occupational stress injury research, right? We know that this is a risk. And there is now, the Mental Health Commission of Canada has put out the psychological health and safety standards for the workplace, right? This is coming down. This is something that workplaces are going to have to be responsible for in some way. And we know the risks associated with people in the type of work that firefighters are in. And if you want to prevent injury, you're going to need to offer them the kind of stuff that the PATH program puts out there. Extended benefits are a wonderful thing, right? But they do not cover. And so our EFAP programs, and the city of Powell River did have one where they had access to a counselor, but perhaps having access to people who are trained actually and experienced and have access to even clinical supervision. So I provide clinical supervision and I have people that I can get clinical supervision to, all of our clinicians working with this group and our other practitioners, right? Like massage therapists, yoga treatment person, occupational therapist. I can also provide this group with training, which we've done, and opportunities to consult about what's happening, right? So it's great to have an EFAP program or an EFAP provider that's an in-person. Oftentimes though, right now, what's happening with larger employers is they're paying an external online EFAP support that hires locally in the community, right? So what we're offering is managing that, right, in our community, and it is local people, but in other communities, we would do something similar, right? But actually that specializes in first responder support. I wanted to mention one more thing that I forgot from the policy manual again. Something else that's in there is, although we can't station ourselves to have an office right there, what the crews had asked for very specifically was, we need you to come here and say hi to us. We need you to come here and see us regularly. So our clinicians, part of the budget, which is, again, this is not a lot of this really isn't a lot of money. They go there once a month. Some of the groups use that as opportunity for consultation. This is what's happening, or PATH program. Hey, what are we supposed to do about this part of the PATH program? And then sometimes it's a come and spend time, catch up, have a coffee. It's very informal. So that's also in their manual, because that was something that's really necessary for this group. And that's the piece that I think carries things so far, because they know you.
Yeah.
right? They've met you.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. So what's missing from this program that you'd both love to see incorporated into it maybe in 2024?
Well, it would,
Sky's the limit.
A hot tub.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's go back.
I think like really ultimately, I mean, what I think the sky's the limit, even when I think of the larger scale of this, this integrated health clinic that we have, is that people have access to what they need when they need it. That's the ultimate. I don't always think, and that's okay. Like, I think my husband asked me one time when I was going to retire, because I told him I might go do some more schooling or something. I said, well, when the government gives every person money that they're entitled to, health dollars, and they can spend it however they want. He's like, so never. I'm like, right. But that's the ultimate, right? But you don't have to do that. You can work with a small budget. We've done this with all kinds of community groups. You can work with, you could tell us the budget, that would be great. I know it's not how it works in the business world, but if it's $10,000 you can create a great, even if it was just once a month, you had somebody or the same person come in and offered you whatever you wanted for consultation or training that month, and they got to know, right? Even that's going to have an impact. But the biggest impact is knowing what you need, right? And then how we can do that with the budget that we're working with or whatever. But I mean, I would love to see this group because they're geared to support themselves. They want to access things. They're not afraid to do it, specifically this group. So trying to, as best we can, offer them the services that will be supportive and helpful.
I think adding to that, there's some really natural old school things that need to be brought back to the fire service. You know, basketball hoops in the back, or hockey, team sports, that kind of thing needs to become once again part of the fabric of the fire service. It needs to be a mandatory thing. I didn't get this fat eating carrots. There has to be some physical component to this. And I think that that's starting to come back as well. That's a great team builder. And of course, the stronger your team, the more resilient they really are. And so, there's a great amount of knowledge that's being collected on operational stress injuries since really the First World War. And I think now 100 and something years later, it's time that we really take those lessons learned and put them into physical action. And I think that's what we're doing here. And I hope that 5 years from now, this program looks very different than it does today. I hope that the evolution of it is continual, and that we keep learning and then putting into practice those new lessons learned. So that's what I hope for the future on this.
It's interesting you said that, guy. I just had a podcast yesterday that's going to be released in a couple of weeks, but he was talking about lessons learned, and he doesn't like that term because we've never actually done anything about those lessons learned. So it's lessons identified is what he calls it now.
Yeah, great.
And until you start actually making action, it's just identifying issues, and you just do it over and over and over and over again, right? So,
yeah. I thought there's a whole culture to that, which is, let's create another course and let's hand out another certificate and cross this T and dot this I. And at the end of the day, nothing has actually occurred. And that may sound brutally negative, but after 25 plus years of experiencing course after course after course and nothing changing, I think that at least maybe that's just subjectively, but I don't think so. I think there's truth to the fact that we needed to take real physical action on this stuff and just make it part of who we are.
I have some other thoughts on moving forward that have come up for me with the PATH program. I know there's some new pieces that are changing and growing right now, but ultimately, like, this is something, like, even locally, we've talked about with the 3 local fire departments, there's actually one more that maybe will get involved in some way with this. When you just said sports team, like, and there's a training that we're going to be doing, hopefully with that related to women in the fire service, working with the Fire Service Women of BC. But like, what if the PATH program is now having, PATH events locally for all the fire departments? What if there is a sports competition day basketball game between this is something that came up with one of the groups. We want to do stuff like that. Well, like, cool. Resources with each other, but like, even with PATH, I would love to see us working in other communities with other fire departments on what their needs are locally and setting up the PATH program there. It's not that hard to do, right? Like, making this something, and it's not about how we necessarily did it with the Powell River Fire Department, but there's some real key components that you might want to use, but then creating your own program that, at the station is supporting you. And the unique feature is, unlike other, like Rocky said, fabulous, incredible training and support out there, but we're actually staying there.
Mm.
We're not training. And this is always something that I had challenges with when I worked in exec work, was we had awesome strategic planning group. Awesome. Like somebody comes in and they fire you up and you make this whole new great plan for the next. And then like you have to do it.
Mm.
Like you can't kind of step. This is continual work. It takes a long time, right? And then the idea is the PATH program is that vehicle that you can bring to your fire station, and you can utilize and collaborate with people who are understanding the more clinical side of the experience to create what's going to protect and prevent and make your group strong, right? And you take that and we work with you, right? And it can be like, it's a super fun for me. This is not necessarily fun for other people, but it's a creative process, right? It is. And then it's neat. And I would like to see it spread. I would love to do this with other groups. And it's neat to see it in Powell River and the Cathett region and how it's worked out here, and with the local nation, the Tla'amin Nation as well. It's really neat. And I'd love opportunities to explore it elsewhere too.
Awesome.
Like to grow this and make it a
Yeah.
thing, right? Then we can have PATH training for all British Columbia, right?
Yeah.
Learning about, the different things that come up. That's where my vision, that's where it goes in my head. And was so neat for me is that VK Wellness Initiative, when we started this, we called it an initiative, but really it's like, it is an initiative rather than a business so much, to learn how to make something accessible. That's the point. That's the point. And it doesn't matter where it is. And we've had this really cool experience with fire departments, so we're running with it, right? How do we make mental health and wellness accessible to this group? And working with Rocky and his group is what taught us some very interesting things about that, right? And so now we've got this real cool thing that we could go and share with other fire departments, right? Like, it's neat. And we've got we also have some peer we have someone who something we're lacking. We collaborate with the different fire departments, but we're lacking people with that personal experience doing it, right? Which is super important. And we do have somebody who's a peer, who's, who does some work in this field locally, who's going to start working with us too. So even expanding our services to be more wraparound, that's more future too.
Great. Sounds very, very impressive. Chief, I'd love to hear what you've learned personally from this experience, from this program, not necessarily developing it, but actually being a part of it.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, part of the reason that I went to them was I was having some struggles myself, right? That I needed to deal with. And, so I figured, instead of snapping, I should probably go talk to someone, and likely if I was feeling those things, then certainly my firefighters were. And I mean, I knew they were, but I needed to take that action and do something, about my own problem, and then I could probably help someone else. So first thing was to take care of my own BS, right?
Yep. Good for you.
And once I did that, then of course, it became easier to deal with this. So I would say, the thing I've learned is, listen to the needs of your firefighters, get to know them, promote their welfare, and make sure that when it comes to this stuff that you stay on the ball, which I've dropped it a couple of times, in the beginning, but also, understand the best you can the needs of your firefighters, really what they are day to day, and promote their welfare, and give them, sorry, what I was trying to say there was give them sound decisions on this stuff, and quickly, right? Don't make people wait. So when it comes to this stuff, I guess the number one thing is don't wait. Deal with this right away.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Early detection, like they say, right?
Yep.
So
There's
one more thing about that is the normalizing of the conversation. I know I'm repeating myself here, but the normalizing of that conversation of mental health issues, operational stress, injury, whatever you want to call it today. But there is still a stigma when we say mental health, right? And there shouldn't be. Like we're still fighting that all over the world, really. But I think the more we talk about, the Let's Talk campaign is brilliant, right? Because the more we talk about this stuff, the more normal it becomes. And I would say, have things in your workplace that encourage this discussion constantly, right? So that it's no longer weird, right? It's just absolutely normal. I would say that would be the biggest lesson learned.
nice. Nice. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of, well, my book, my story, my whenever I go to workshops, this podcast is all about sharing and making that an everyday conversation. It's not something that's, you only regard when it happens, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the mission. Yeah, that sounds like we're all on the same page there.
So put the life jacket on first, then
Yes.
Yeah.
get in the
Yeah.
boat, right? So
How about you, Kara? What did you learn about the fire service that surprised you?
Um, well, a few things. Um, First of all, I learned, and I know this, like, you should know this, but what an amazing, I love impact. I love and I love working with people to figure out what is the best way, solving the problem, that kind of thing, right? This group is so, and not the Palo River Fire Department, but all the fire chiefs that I've worked with. They are such incredibly, they have a very high standard of what's the word I'm looking for? These are people who have values, who have integrity, who are actually willing to be vulnerable, like, which maybe you don't think, but they are. I have seen, like, this group is so incredible to work with, and they have taken these little tiny nuggets of, like, I walk in and I'm like, oh, hey, let's do some brainstorming about this. And they love it and they run with it. They do it. And there's like a certain type of people that work in this group. And I also, in working with this group, began to learn about, and I love working with new and different groups of people. You learn about their experience and what they do. And the work that first responders and specifically firefighters are doing is something that people do not recognize. Like, I am shocked how many people maybe have a different idea or don't really know what this group of people do. Like, these are our people who are saving people's lives on the regular. They are in our community, making sure that we are protected and safe. And a level of respect and even awe developed in myself for all of you that do this work. And it's so incredible. And I want to keep playing my part and finding ways to do this, because this is the fabric of, like, what's keeping us going, like, in our community. When I learn, and I am, like, surprised at the resiliency, to be honest, when I begin to hear about what people are seeing and experiencing, right? These are strong people, very, very strong individuals that are working in our communities tirelessly to, often with not a huge amount of recognition. Um, I mean, I always thought firefighters were wonderful and doing a great job. I mean, well, who'd really want to do that? That sounds like, but to get even deeper with what they're actually doing, like, and such strong people, like, strong, very strong, and they're mentally strong, right? Like, it's incredible to see. So it's been in such a cool journey, and meeting these people. They're really great. I like working with all of them.
Awesome. So what's one question that I have not asked you that you wish I asked you? I say this often.
Something I think that I really wanted to highlight, that you asked this several times, actually, that I don't think we actually stated it. One of the reasons that I think it was my business partner may have reached out to, right? I
Mhm.
said that in the beginning. And what I really wanted to say was the power of the collaboration between, like, ourselves, our health clinic, and the fire department, and with Rocky in creating this, was really where the magic was. A willingness and an interest for people, to help people feel well, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's what this is about, protecting people. And, like, yeah, no shock, the firefighters protect people. Of course they do, right? It's in their blood. Like, this is what you guys all do, guys and gals. So, yeah,
But
it's the
we
power
also
of
forget to
collaborating.
take care of ourselves.
Yes, yes.
So it is
Um,
very important.
It's an untapped potential, though, because
Yes.
it's there,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
but even the taking care of each other is where it starts too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's in that power of that kind of collaboration, and maybe trusting the outsiders a little bit,
Mhm.
right? Us,
Totally.
giving us a chance, kind of, which is what Rocky did, right? But he saw the potential in that we were going to work with them and be there in person. I think that's what he really kind of, okay, this is how they're doing services. Hey, that might work for us, right? So,
Mm.
but yeah,
Awesome.
that
Very
collaboration.
cool. How about you, Chief?
honestly, I think I can't think of anything that I wanted you to ask. I was uh, I didn't have anything prearranged in my mind on this. I think that I think you've done a great job of asking us these
Mhm.
questions. I'm just I'm very proud of the fact that the firefighters and us have come together to create a program. And it really is this isn't just some old fat chief, trying to say nice things. The real truth here is that we engaged our firefighters and subject matter experts outside, and we came together and said, what the hell is it we need, right? What is it that's really going to work? And I think that just like most things in life, we kind of know what we need to do, right? To solve problems, but it's taking those steps, verbalizing it, and then making it happen. That's the difficult part. And I think we've done that here, and it's by no means perfect, but that's we know that. And the idea is that we have a number of rudders in the water so we can course correct as quickly and as often as possible. And I'm thinking that this is going to be a model for other people to look at for sure.
Beautiful. So saying that, how can people learn more about this program? How can they connect with both of you? Maybe Cara, if you want to go first.
Yeah. On our website, www.vkwellness.ca, there is there's a little tab. So all of our corporate wellness services, that we call this VK Engage. And so at the very bottom of that, and this is where the PATH program would fall under, but at the very bottom of that, you can book a consult with us. So that's on our website. You could also just email me or email our contact email info@vkwellness.ca, and just mention that you're interested in learning more about the PATH program, and we'll set up a consult with you to chat more about it. There is a component of our website that has some posters about the PATH program, but I am ashamed to say that it's really not. We've been trying to develop it for some time, but our website people are not, that's not their specialty. So we're getting there, and they're really wonderful. But yeah, that would be the best way, is to just book a consult.
Yep.
And Rocky has definitely spoken to different chiefs or different fire service personnel when they've reached out to learn more about it too. So
cool. How about you, Chief? How can they get a hold of you?
Sure. They can email me at rswanson@powellriver.ca. And from there, we'll just have a conversation online or over the phone. And I'd love to talk to anybody. And I just saying that I am not the subject matter expert for the psychological mechanics of this, but I can certainly walk them through the program and how we set it up, et cetera. I'd love to talk to people about that.
Fantastic. All that information and all that contact will be in the show notes for anyone who's listening right now. All right. Cara, Chief, just want to really appreciate your time today sharing the PATH program. I'm blown away. I truly think that is a great model. It makes me want to dig into it a little deeper and see how I could support that even through my efforts as well. So through Silvero or through my TRE or through my coaching. And
awesome.
Oh, cool.
We'd love to have you come up here sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Love to.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Definitely a well worth program to share with the world. And I encourage you to hit the road and maybe hit some of the fire chief conferences and trade shows and share your message there as well.
Will do. Well, thank you very much. It was unexpected and a real privilege to be part of your show. When Carrie told me we were going to do this, I didn't know about your show. I shy away from being on camera. And so it's a rare thing for me to do this, but I really appreciate the opportunity. It's a real privilege to be able to speak for my firefighters.
Yeah. Well, your firefighters are lucky to have you as their DC. So
they make it easy.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's awesome. This is fun talking about this with Rocky, right? Because it was just neat to start it from just kind of just exploring an idea to see where it's gone, right? And it's just so neat. I love it. It's cool. Really neat group of people to work with. And even with your podcast, I checked out your book. I love books. So it's be a great resource to add to our library. And I'd be interested to hear about the other stuff you do too.
For sure.
I think it is about all of us working together, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when we're all on the same page.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's another thing, I know we're kind of past that point of the conversation, but I want to say that, choosing the right people to work with on this, of course, that's the magic, right? And make sure that if people out there listening are thinking about creating a program like this, choose wisely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Choose
I agree.
that you truly are going to get along with in the long run, right? So
Fantastic. Well, thank you both. Thank you for sharing the PATH program with the world. And thanks for everyone listening. Until next time.
Take care.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.